Welcome to Life and Liberty Radio with David Householder. I'm Josh Jose, and together, you and I are taking another step toward freedom, both spiritual and political. So get comfortable, breathe in, and ignite your imagination. Envision a society that is spiritually deep and truly free. It's easy if you try.
Most human beings are told and feel that they are somehow in deep debt. I want to look at the word debt from a spiritual standpoint, and I'm very concerned about the word debt, because debt implies an obligation towards another person which can be quantified. It can be put into a number. And we might have been told by our parents, like, you owe this to your parents after all they've done for you. You owe this to your nation because of all kinds of things that happened before you were born. You owe this to God, even though He didn't ask you your permission to be brought into this world. Here you are, and you owe God just automatically. That's the sense of original sin, the sense that somehow just being born here, you are in debt. The very fact that you were brought here leaves you indebted to the Creator, so you better pay up. And I find that very problematic, and the reason I find it problematic is not because I'm anti-spiritual or anti-religious. It's because I think Jesus got it. Jesus of Nazareth was just a hardcore preacher against debt and and for forgiveness. And he was a hardliner on forgiveness. He even went so far as to say, if you don't forgive your neighbor, God can't forgive you. Now, he didn't mean that to create another rule, another obligation. You better forgive, otherwise. No, he said, we need to live in a debt-free society, because you can't have real relationships with each other or with the Creator unless you are living debt-free. You don't think in terms of, I'm doing this because I'm obligated. You do this because you want to. The entire Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5 through Matthew 7, Matthew chapter 5 through Matthew chapter 7, is all about getting away from debt mentality into the mentality of doing this because it's good, because it makes sense, because you love others and you love God. Jesus was asked by the rabbis, what do you think the most important of the commandments, the obligations, the debts is? And he says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And he prefaced that with, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Where's the talk of debt? It's not there. In the Hebraic Judeo-Christian tradition and in the Vedic or Hindu sort of yoga tradition, there is a sense of debt, a sense of obligation, a sense of karma, a sense of law, a sense of punishment, a sense of responsibility. But within all of that, there are the seeds of its own destruction. And Jesus saw right into the middle of all of that. He saw that within the biblical witness, he wasn't challenging the biblical witness. He said that within the biblical witness, there is a deeper wisdom. And C.S. Lewis saw this. C.S. Lewis, in all of his books, talked about the deep magic, which is karma, or you get what you pay for, or you literally reap what you sow. And Jesus turns that on its head and says, no, none of that's real. And within the very truth kernel of the law, according to the Sermon on the Mount, the whole idea is what our hearts are oriented towards. In other words, it's not just the act of murder or the act of adultery, it's the act of anger and the act of lust. So it gets to the very core of everything. And Paul gets at this in his letter to the Galatians, saying, hey, it's not about the law. It's not about obligations. Those things are cool until you get the whole spiritual thing. It's like your guardian or your step-parent, which brings you to the point where you realize you have a real parent in heaven, God the Father, Ahava, as Jesus would say, Father. We're children of God. We're not slaves of God. We're not stepchildren. We are children of God. We're brought forth by Him. That being the case, we have no obligation towards each other and no obligation towards Him, because obligation ruins love. If you love out of obligation, you're missing the point. Now, obligation works to get you to the point where you get the idea of love. But if you're going to live that way and the goal is obligation, meeting obligations, you're going to fail. Going to fail. Romans 3:23 says that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And the truth is, we cannot meet all of our obligations. And those obligations are infinite around us. And we have two choices. One is that we will do the best we can to meet those obligations, and you will fail. Trust me. No human being's ever been able to do that. It's the road to disaster. Or we can follow a more spiritual path and follow the Holy Spirit and do what the Holy Spirit leads us to do. And that is not obligation, that's love, and that's spirituality. And that's what Jesus was getting at, that's what the Apostle Paul was getting at, and that's what some of the later teachers in the Vedic tradition and what the Sufis were getting at, and the Kabbalists in Judaism were getting at. The whole idea that the point of this here is a relationship with our Creator, and a prayer relationship, and a spiritual relationship. And it's only through a spiritual rebirth, Jesus said, you must be born again, that we get this. And so what we're talking about here is not religion in the sense of meeting obligations and rules. It's a sense of being in tune and mindful of our Creator and listening to our Creator. Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice, and they know my voice. And we want to be able to be quiet enough to be able to listen for that voice. So debt gets us in nothing but trouble. Debt has all kinds of moral assumptions, that debt must be repaid, that moneylenders are cruel and immoral. And this is why there's prohibitions in Islam and Christianity against money lending, which is why the Jews stepped in throughout much of our recent history in the last couple thousand years and provided the money lending because they had less of a taboo against those things. And usury was the word that Muslims and Christians would use for interest. You're charging interest, that's not fair, that's stealing from people. And the whole thing it boils down to the Old Testament sense of the year of Jubilee, when debts would be repaid, because debts compound. They never go away. Look at our national debt. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So we want to live debt-free. We want to live lives that are relational with God and with other people. And I want to leave you with the words of Jesus, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. There's a singularity, there's a unity, there's one creation, one Creator. And you shall love that Creator with all your heart, soul, and mind. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And on this hangs all of the law and the prophets.
So put some sunshine and water on these fresh ideas and keep taking that next step toward freedom. Join us every weekday for the latest life and liberty ideas. The views expressed on this program are purely those of the presenter, and not necessarily those of the advertisers or organizations or persons with which the presenter has a relationship. Please click on the Amazon banner at the top of the Life and Liberty page, and consider doing all your online shopping through this portal. See you tomorrow.